Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and this weekend we saw the start of Extreme E for 2024, and I do have some thoughts on not just the racing as it was shown, but the programming around it as well. Extreme E does seem to have had its day, and I think luckily it's quirky and unique enough that it can get away with a lot. There's not really anything else like it, so it's worth watching for that reason alone. And for the most part, the racing was entertaining. Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of teams because I believe Chip Ganassi, X44 and Carl Cox have disappeared because the cars are changing to hydrogen next year. I know Carl Cox have said they'll be back. I don't know about the other teams. And the move to hydrogen is very interesting because it does suggest that electric motorsport is dead in the water unless your name's Formula E. Every other series that has gone for electric has struggled, and Extreme E is just another casualty in the graveyard at this point. Hydrogen does look to be the future. I know EV sales are down around the world. I know at least Ford I think they've closed down like an EV production plant because they just can't sell enough of them. People who have bought them are apparently getting rid of them in favour of hybrids. I think companies that have really gone all in on an electric strategy have struggled, and it does look like we are out of the age of electric already. And if you look at motorsport, the amount of electric series that just never get off the ground or struggle, or like Extreme E are now moving on, really the only one that has been fully successful is Formula E and the e-scooter series, I guess. Everything else has really just died on its arse. Scandinavian Touring Cars was meant to start as an all-electric series last year and didn't. Electric GT never happened. Pure TCR died a death. I'm not even sure if there's been any other attempt. Like World Rallycross, I think the biggest example is it's been a disaster ever since they went for electric. It killed the fields. So instead of having 14 to 16 drivers in a variety of vehicles, we went down to about 8 in the same basic vehicle with different covers over them. And then one of them burst into flames. As it turns out, it's more difficult to put out an electric car than it is a petrol car. Not that any car bursting into flames is ever a good thing. But that basically killed off the World Rallycross last year. And I haven't actually heard much about it this year, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But as I said last year, it's going to be better if they move away from full electric and go back to petrol. Just better for the series, better for the racing. I think Extreme E is kind of at that point as well where, in terms of the programming, this weekend I did not watch the environmental stuff around it because whilst I've said in the past it's okay, it does get pretty tedious when you've watched a lot of it. And I skipped it because I couldn't be bothered. Didn't watch Extreme E live because I watched about the first 12 hours, so I had the opportunity to skip it and I took it because I just could not be bothered to be preached to about the environment again. I don't apologise for that. It has its place, but to put it on the YouTube channel, the TV show as it's presented is 2 hours long nearly, and a lot of it is taken up with the environmental message at the start. Don't just either have a shorter program or find a way to have more racing, which is difficult, I know. Also, electric has caused some logistical nightmares for Extreme E. Ever since the series began, the calendar has been completely in flux. They've never been able to nail down, from the start of the year, the calendar the series will follow in that specific year. There's always chopping and changing because it's a pain in the arse to set up these new tracks, basically. They're having to find locations and to build the tracks and design them just for Extreme E, which is a difficult and it's probably a massive pain in the butt. But then doing it on different continents that you're sailing to on a boat to reduce your carbon footprint, it's very clever, doesn't really work out in the real world, which kind of sums up electric motorsport and electric cars in general. Nice idea, just doesn't work. And I think if they got rid of the boat and just ran it like a normal motorsport series and started going to actual tracks like rallycross tracks or rally stages, if they could, I don't know how that would work. Stadiums, like stadium super trucks. I think it would work a lot better, at least in terms of having a stable calendar, because the calendar for 2024 is woeful. It's all over the place. Starts in February, ends in September, but the next round isn't for like 4 or 5 months, I think. And we have 2 rounds in a row in Sardinia in Italy because they obviously can't find anywhere else to do it. So it's either have 4 rounds or just do 2 in Italy, a week apart. That's not great, and if it wasn't for the restriction of building your own tracks around the world, I think we'd have a much more interesting calendar and therefore a much more interesting championship. And they could go to places like Hell in Norway and Linden Hill in the UK. They could go to America and share rounds with the Nitro Rallycross. Much better for Extreme E because in a way it introduces it to fans who may not have heard about it and take it to places where people might not have seen it. And they could still have rounds where they go to Greenland and where else have they been? I mean, Saudi Arabia. They seem to be in Saudi Arabia and Italy a lot. They had the round in the quarry in Scotland. That was really good. I'm guessing it's a nightmare setting up the electric charging points and getting the teams in and all the spare bits they need, spare cars, all the drivers have to get out there. I imagine it's really difficult, and that's why it's created problems for the calendar, which has never really been great. And I think it is its biggest failing. It would be nice to see Extreme E with a proper calendar set in stone for the year, with plenty of rounds spread out nicely, and I don't think they can do that whilst they're on their little boat and using tracks that they're designing as they go. And I think a sensible head needs to prevail here and say, we've done well with the environmental messaging, but now let's just run it as a proper motorsport series. The gimmick isn't enough to carry the whole series on its back. Not strong enough. For the most part, I think a lot of people who are into environmentalism probably don't like motorsport anyway. And so, in that sense, it kind of depends who you're catering Extreme E for. Is it to impress the environmentalists who already don't like motorsport? Or is it to show motorsport fans that motorsport can be environmentally friendly? Because it doesn't really appeal to either. And I think changing to hydrogen is a very interesting move, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. This year's kind of a dud. Because, as I said, the calendar's awful and we've got less cars. But that's not to say the racing can't be exciting, and I think it does help that Extreme E is unique enough that it can survive as just 8 cars jumping over dunes and stuff, and it's still cool. And I was worried that the RXR team were going to run away with it this year because they dominated on the first day. Second day, they dominated again, but then they lost in the final, so maybe they won't have it all their own way. But I think Kristoffersson and Arlen Kalinski are going to be very hard to stop. I almost guarantee the champion will be Swedish, but only because Matthias Ekström is really good, and so is the Hansen brothers. So at least one person will be Swedish winning the championship, I think. The only real... I mean, maybe McConnell and Sands can win it. I think they're the only contender that doesn't have a Swede on the team. It's a long way to go. I think we've got a long wait till our next round. And I'm moaning about it, but I did enjoy watching it. So it must be doing something right. But I think all eyes will be on 2025 for Extreme E or Extreme H. I kind of hope they keep the electric series going even as a support series for the main series. I think it would help to have more programming that you can show. And even the environmental stuff, if you really want to do it in smaller chunks on your YouTube channel, because if you're really into that environmental message, you will still go out of your way to find it, and other people who just want to see highlights will come across it on YouTube and maybe watch it. I probably would watch it if you at least tried to make it sound interesting. So I think, unfortunately, Extreme E is in a difficult place for 2024, because this year you could almost skip over. I almost think it'd be better if they just didn't do Extreme E this year and just wait until 2025, because that's where the interest is going to be for the 8 teams that are still there. And the Spark Odyssey is still the same car it was in 2021, bar probably a few updates here and there. this is kind of just a rollover year. It's going to be kind of forgettable. So watch it, it'll be fun, but I wouldn't really consider it to be a really important watch this year, which is a shame. But it does mean that in 2025 we will have to watch Extreme Hydrogen to see. Extreme E is a much better name than Extreme H as well, so they might need to do some proper rebranding. So with that, I leave you the opportunity to tell me I'm wrong. Tell me what you think of Extreme E. Do you like the environmental messages at the start of it all and through it? Do you like the racing? Are you excited for Hydrogen? Is there anything else you would change about the series? Let me know down below. Thank you very much for subscribing to the channel and for watching the videos, and have a good one.